Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, discussing all things audiobooks with the authors that write the stories and the narrators that perform them. Brought to you by Viviana, Enchantress of Books.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Season 6, Episode 1 of the Audiobook Lovin Podcast. And I'm excited to be chatting with a narrator, Anne Flosnik. Welcome so much. I've been so excited to talk to you today.
Oh, me too. I've been counting the days.
Yeah. But we're going to start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been narrating and how you got started.
Right. I've been narrating since 1996. I was looking to make a career change from being an obstetric nurse, and I've always been very shy, and the whole performing thing was not something that was really ever on the cards. It's just something that I had a burning desire to do. You know, like there's nothing sadder than the bird who dies with the song still in her breast, kind of a thing, the song unsung. I knew there was something. And so really the beginning of it all happened. I had two children. They're very close together. They're 2 days apart, 2 years and 2 days apart. And kind of once they were both in the world, I thought, well, this is my life. And I was a nurse there. I was working 12-hour night shifts on an obstetric ward. And it was very hard. There were a lot of, maybe even 12 doctors, and they all want different things and, you know, do the whole thing a different way, whatever the thing. It was very, very stressful. And because you don't just have one patient, for each patient, you have two patients. And it's very, very stressful. And there were 12-hour night shifts, and I traveled like an hour to work. And the 12-hour shift was never a 12-hour shift. It was a 16, 18, 20, yeah. So once my two children were in the world, I thought this is just going to be the way my life is unless I make a change. And I just felt a burning desire to do something. As came up with that burning desire, I want to do something that adds value, you know, more than the narrating the books kind of a thing. That's something that was different for me. So it was just a long time of feeling I want to come into the light kind of a thing I don't know what way to say it. But anyway, so I started looking into, well, what do I do? Because we have to pay the bills, and this has got to be a responsible thing, and I'm going to have to keep working while I find myself at that point in life, you know, as a young mother with a family. So I did a few things. The home-based business was a big thing back in the early 90s, and that was where I started. I've always loved makeup and cosmetics, things like that, and actually doing makeovers on people, putting makeup on people, and talking about skincare and all of that. So the first thing I did was I went to the library, and everything with me starts with a trip to the library. And I got a book about home-based businesses. And in that, I found a book that it had all these different home-based things that you could do. And one of them was to work for a company called Oriflame, which was like a Swedish or a European Mary Kay kind of a concept where you did the parties and all of that. And remember, I told you how shy I was. So this was huge. And kind of everything I learned in that phase of my life, which was really pushing myself just to not kind of be on the sidelines of life. I've taken in, it was all business kind of stuff. And it's a lot like acting in that, like when you go to an audition or you go to a job, you've got to get in that car, and there was no GPS then either. So that was even more difficult. I had to, that's the other thing about me, Viviana. I am a very fearful driver. Been in some nasty accidents and things, and I just am fearful about driving. And the distances in America, you know, compared to what I was used to, and always just hopping on a bus, you know, to go anywhere I wanted to in England, that was all. And I was late to learning how to drive. But I had to learn when I came here. But anyway, so that's another thing. But so I worked for Oriflame, forget how many years, and I went to they would have these wonderful conferences like Scottsdale, Arizona or whatever, and I would go and I would be in their galaxy of stars because they had a kind of recognition thing. So, you know, I did my best to do well, and I did. And it was always, all of that was just really pushing myself outside my comfort zone. but I loved it. And so that led into one of the clients I had met through that, because I met so many wonderful people, and that was one of the great joys of it, was meeting people, was a hypnotist. And she she was a guest on a local TV access program that was called Eye on Beauty. And anyway, so she said, come on down and we're going to get you interviewed and so on and so forth. So I went down and I had my first kind of on-camera interviewee thing. And it was very unusual in that there was an audience, and my task was to pretend I was interviewing the owner of a fitness place. And so that's what I did for my audition, because the audition was to be a kind of a reporter. We would go around various places interviewing things about, things related to beauty and health. And so I did that little interview, which was it was an audition, and there was an audience there, and they clapped, Viviana, they clapped. Well, that just, something just went off, exploded in my heart. And I thought, oh my gosh, now this is it. There's something, this is what and it brought me back to when I was a little girl on a swing, and I would swing and I would have my dreams. And of course I was going to marry the most handsome prince, live in a beautiful castle, and I was going to be a singer. I was going to sing and enchant the world and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. There was a big performance thing. And even when I was a child, the birthday parties and things, I don't know why, but usually I was asked to sing, and I'd be standing on tables and singing and doing this and that. So as shy as I was, there was always that desire to perform. I loved it. And so hearing this clapping now as an adult, I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to do something about this. So then I started investigating, how am I going to get an acting career? And what do you need to do? So you had to get a headshot, you had to get a resume. And I sought out people. That's what I tend to do. I sought out who would help me, and paid things, who would I consult with to write me a resume, and who was a good and reasonable headshots, because everything had to be within a fairly tight budget, because thank God I have a wonderful husband who's very understanding, but we had two little ones. I started this kind of I think my daughter was maybe 6 months old. I thought, this is it. So I had a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old, and now I'm trying to find myself, and we're trying to pay these bills. And so that brought me to the Actors Center I think they were in Virginia at the time, but they could have been in DC. Anyway, so I joined that, and they gave you, information about people that would help you write resumes, and they did acting courses, all kinds of things, accent work, whatever it was. They had different things at different times. But the big thing was that they had a hotline that you called in on a telephone. And every week there were auditions that you could call in and, see how you did, whatever. So through that auditioning process, or just the notification of possible opportunities, one week there came up first of all, the very first thing I did from that Actors Center, I got a voice acting teacher, because I figured even at that point I was kind of older for the on-camera stuff. But I thought, well, maybe my voice, because that it had an accent, which I thought might be a little bit of an advantage. So I'm going to put my money in that, because every penny had to be very carefully accounted for, and try and just put it in the best place to start with. So I found a wonderful teacher through the Actors Center, who was called John Burr, and he is in Florida now. And so his system was, he gave you an evaluation, and I had the evaluation, and he said, yeah, I think you've got promise. And so then I started, I had to travel 2 hours to get to him, which was an hour's drive, which it terrified me, but I did it. And then I had to get to a metro and change a train, and then do a 10-minute walk kind of a thing. So that was fine. So I studied with him for 6 months, and I was very strict with myself about it's going to be 6 months, because otherwise it could be like a psychiatrist's couch or something where you just keep on. I could still be going. Honestly, I could still be going. But I put a limit on it. And in the time that I was with him, through this Actors Centre that I'd found him on and the hotline situation, it came up that the Library of Congress were looking for studio audiobook narrators. And I don't know if it said whether you had to have experience, but anyway, I went for an audition. And so I went, and it was also in Bethesda where the voice teacher was. He helped me get the audition. They sent a big packet of stuff and I think a cassette tape, if I remember rightly. So this shows you how long ago this was. And he chose my selections for me and rehearsed me through them. And we made the audition tape. We sent it in. And that was in... well, I don't remember. I think it was in July. Yeah. And then they said, okay, so that got mailed in. Then they called me and said, come in and perform the piece that you sent in on the tape down here in our studio. So I went and I did that, and I came out of there and I was shaken like a leaf because I thought that was probably the finest acting thing of my whole life, because I was just trying to pretend. And of course, I'm sure it wouldn't have, obviously it didn't come off that way, but I was just trying to pretend that I knew what I was doing. And, and just even seeing another human being, because you could see when you sat down in the recording booth, then there was, a connecting one, and you could see the other fellow through the window. And I thought, just keep it together. So anyway, so I did that, and I was shaking on the way out, but I thought, no, whether you get it or not, and this is just a huge milestone in your life. You really have done something that was extremely difficult, and you survived it. So that's a win. Okay, so I went home, and then I didn't hear anything. That was in July. It must have been 1995, because I didn't hear until February of the following year. Then I got a phone call, and they said, we've got this book for you. And it was, it was a very, popular fiction, 10 people at a dinner table kind of a thing. We've got a book for you. Are you still interested? So was I still interested? Nearly hit the roof. So they said, they gave me a schedule and come on down. And that was the start of it. Mm-hmm. And then, as I told you, they let me get maybe through a quarter of the book, and then they said, and the day I arrived to start it was the blizzard. And then I started recording it maybe a quarter of the way through, and then they said, don't think you quite have it yet, but we see promise, so we're just going to start you off with this nonfiction cookery thing. So there it went on, and I did hundreds of books with them of all kinds. And I mean, that was a different time, anything that wasn't American, I did it.
But I mean, from a huge career change from where you were to being in audiobooks. And even then, the amount of times and years that you've been in this audiobook industry now, that alone also has changed so many folds over.
Oh, yeah.
And you've seen it, and you're still here, and you're like, yes, I still want to do this.
Yeah. I like the challenge. And you can't foresee what's coming next, because, obviously when I started, there weren't computers. Most people didn't record themselves at home. So there was none of that extra layer of learning and expertise. And actually, I was very late to the party. I think it was around 2015 was when I started I was paying attention on the Facebook groups, and I had I had a whole team of people in my mind worked out about who were the experts that I would consult with when it came time to teach me how to self-record and set up the studio and check the levels and all these things. So once I made my mind up to it, it was still a bit of a learning curve, but it wasn't as painful as it would have been, I think, if I'd started with everybody else. But anyway, never mind. It was late, and I kind of regret that I didn't have a bit more faith. But so that mistake won't happen again, I hope, when the next big wave comes along. And there's always a wave, isn't there?
There is. I mean, I've definitely seen a few of those waves in these 10 years that I've been doing this.
Yes.
And it ebbs and flows. And I love how you kind of have to reinvent yourself to kind of stay relevant, but still be steady enough in what you've been doing in order to maintain and be here in this industry for as long as you have. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting to kind of see it. But I love the fact that even back then, at least you were provided with, here's a website where the pronunciation of jalapeno and any other thing that you wanted to is good. A lot of times we have the dialogue that I've had with the narrators. Now they're like, I didn't even know that existed. And I'm like,
there wasn't a website, Viviana. No, there wasn't. It was I think it was Random House Dictionary and Webster's, Merriam-Webster's third edition or whatever the thing. And yeah, that was just those kind of books. Now, actually, no, I tell a lie, because no, but that must have been later. They had their own.
They had transcripts, didn't they?
I don't know. They had a thing called Say How, and they had another thing that I forget the name of. And the other the two big other things were the Merriam-Webster Biographical Dictionary for Dead People, and the Merriam-Webster Geographical Dictionary for Place Names. So those were the main things.
Yeah. Still, I mean, yeah, that's right. Back then, they didn't have websites. I still remember having to go to the library and go through the fish nets, like the fish kind of film, and to look for like newspaper clippings.
That's right. No, I never got down to that I can remember.
Yeah.
There was another big thing called what was it called? I forget. It was in 3 volumes, and I had to go to the library to get that. A big geographical thing that kind of got down into villages and that kind of a thing.
Yeah. Because also, again, you're hoping that you're pronouncing, because even if phonetically they're writing it out.
Oh, they taught us how to write these diacritical things that were based on whatever the pronunciation guide in the Random House Dictionary was. That was what we used, which was fairly simple. It was just like 2 little dots over an A makes it an R, and a straight line over an A makes it an A, those kind of little things.
Mm-hmm.
So it was fairly easy to write it down. And we had to fill in a pronunciation log written for every project that we did.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's part of my process now. I couldn't narrate a book that I didn't research myself. And anyway, even when research to this day is done for me, I tend to do it anyway, just because it will make the reading smoother for me, because that's how I've always done it. And plus, I consider that I'm speaking a foreign language. So, if I get, usually not always, but sometimes you'll get, say conservatory. I'm being silly here, but that's not what I would say. So, it's I just do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, again, pronunciation it's one of the things when it comes down to audiobooks. You get that one book that's taking place in that one town. And you mispronounce the name of that street. You're gonna get someone now, not maybe back then, but now for sure in those reviews busting out with, that's not how we pronounce it here.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And you're going, oopsie. And as someone that is in Florida, where we have a lot of different, like Kissimmee, and people go Kissimmee, I'm like, no, it's Kissimmee.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, all the time.
All of these famous or infamous.
Yeah. And sometimes you just don't know. It's okay. But it's definitely, I think, a true art form to be a narrator and bring voices, these characters, regardless if it's a historical romance or historical fiction or a cookbook, into someone's earbuds to make it entertaining and enough to keep our attention, especially nowadays when we're constantly go, 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 go. Right. Yeah. And so you've seen a lot in these times and you've kept up with it. And so much so, I mean, you have all these books out. I know that Audible tends to be like what people look for as far as, how many books do they have out? And they automatically run to Audible. But as someone that's had a career for so long, like you said, some of them are no longer in print, including in audio. So you have over... You said like about 800, I think? No, more than that. Yeah.
No, less. No,
less?
I honestly don't know. I don't know, Viviana, but it's a lot more than it says on Audible anyway.
Yeah. I think Audible, when I looked and I went, you lying. I know that. I go, you lying, Audible.
Funny. I love that. Oh, we should have a T-shirt with that written on.
Right? Yeah, considering everything going on with that platform lately. Whew.
Oh, yeah. Always.
Goodness, yeah. But I mean, the fact that you picked it up on your own. I'm very tech savvy. And sometimes when it comes down to the audio side of things, of connecting and all the stuff that happens in the booth in order to record this stuff, I would have to get hands-on training for me to get it. Because I tried everything before prior to this podcast, creating the podcast, to make sure what mic do I get. And nowadays, a lot of that information is available, but not 10 years ago when I started, for sure.
Oh,
and
yeah.
let alone you when you started, as well. So how are you keeping up with the times when it comes down to all this stuff that keeps happening and shifting, not only from a trend perspective as far as the, popular books and stuff, but everything else that's going on? Because you're so on it too on social media.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a great compliment coming from you. Oh my gosh. I try, I really do, but it's the bare minimum, isn't it? Oh, crikey. I've just started doing Canva, which my friend Emma Fay, she's a wonderful teacher. So she taught me how to do that and to kind of make my own covers and have them all ready to go for coming up and that kind of a thing. And I learned how to do a headliner.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the companies actually sent the information when we asked for it. I knew that. So to answer your question about how to keep up, it's mostly with Facebook groups, and just talking to friends, because we all talk a lot more online and things, and even on Zoom and so forth now than we ever did, or WhatsApp, or whatever the things are, Messenger, Facebook Live. Yeah. So it's really all about that. And there's more than enough information there between the particular narrator groups, the professional ones, and even ACX groups, to see what's going on with all of that. So I really do. I try to keep abreast of it. And then you just kind of, you read everything and you take it in, you digest it, and you do you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think for something that you innately have, which is probably why you didn't mention it, is you have a desire to learn it.
Oh, yes.
The inclination to find out. I think sometimes people forget that that's actually a step in the process. The desire to want to know how to do it.
Oh, I never thought about that, but
Yes.
you're right. Yeah, well, it's sink or swim in this. You know what I mean? There is
Yeah.
the world's not going to stop tomorrow if I never do another audiobook. So whether I do or not is all down to my desire to do so. So to keep working, you just have to do all the things, and all the things keeps getting more and more and more. But then, you either embrace that and say, well, that's great. I'm green and growing, or right and rotten kind of a thing. So I just try to embrace it. Now, there's some days, if you were to ask me, I might be a little bit more tired or whatever. And, some days for everything, things get a bit more tricky. But overall, yes, I try to embrace it.
Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, you're no longer available, right? You're not staying with the times. And I think that's something sometimes too that we tend to forget we fight it. We don't like change as humans. I think that's a thing that we're like, no, the last time there was change, the dinosaurs stopped roaming the earth. Yes. And you're going, it's not that catastrophic.
No. And I will, that's very, so well said. The thing about doing this so long too is perspective, Viviana, because, I've seen the conversations where the sky was going to fall in when we had to learn how to record ourselves. That was, and I stayed out of it until I just had to make the decision. I either want to do this or I don't. But I left it really up to the line with that one. And now we're at it kind of again with AI. And so, there's always, whatever the change is, we all kind of resist it to begin with. And we just, I suppose everybody handles it in their own way. But my way is just to kind of collect as much information as I can and digest it and go very purposefully to the next stage, hopefully, not to be making too many missteps.
Yeah. But I mean, that's, again, in other words, just to stay relevant and be able to maintain, getting the gigs. Right. But also if you're a learner, that's like, ooh, something new.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I never imagined, because to me, it's all consuming, honestly, just to narrate a book and do that task the way that you would want to do it. But think of all the tasks that we have. So we have to be kind of social media savvy to, whatever degree, we have to be doing that. We're engineering ourselves. I won't say engineering is too big of a word, but we're recording ourselves anyway. We have to learn all of that. And it helps to be good when, go to as many public events and so forth as you can, or that kind of thing. I mean, there's really no end to it.
Yeah, well, I would call it the job description has changed a lot within the last 5 years.
Yes, and it will change again. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and you have to kind of add those little extra little, sweeteners, I call them sometimes, as to what else you bring to the table in order to continue to get employed. And it's
Uh-huh.
just one of those things that it changes. I'm like, are you willing to post on your social media that this book is coming out? Might not get you hired if you say no. It's just, you never know nowadays. It's just one of those things that you kind of have to learn. But I love that you have, stayed with the times, as they say. And you have such a ability to, well, I mean, it really, I mean, I see you on socials. You're posting about your latest releases. You're posting with sometimes when there's something new to learn, you're like, oh, I found this out, and you share, because sharing is caring. And that's always great. But also, like, narrator uplift is something too that you started doing.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, because I was curious as to how it came about.
Oh, Viviana. It was some kind of a yearning to do something that came over years. And often I talk with Karen Cummins, my great friend Karen Cummins. We'd have these phone conversations and I would just toss ideas around. And after thinking about what it would be, because it could have been anything, but I don't know, it just came to me that I wanted to do something that didn't really have me at the center of it, that I wanted to talk to people and shine a light on them and just kind of uplift, but doing that, but uplifting everybody along with the process, that there would be information shared within that would be of interest to anybody within our community that wanted to listen to it, and to make it that they were available to replay, so that also that it was worth the guests' time. They could put that, if they wanted to do whatever they wanted to it, they would have a recording of the time that they spent with Karen and myself.
It was in reference to just wanting to give people the opportunity to just learn some things and share some things.
It's to, kind of uplift everybody, because, I think I have a fairly good mix of interesting talent or people that are around the industry, so that they might be coaches or they have technical skills, people such as yourself.
Yep.
And the social media mavens, and then I have casting directors. And let's face it, our opportunities for meeting casting directors are not something that we can just find every day of the week. And so just even that, and highlighting all these people just that are wonderful people, and they have something wonderful to share or teach or just uplift us all with their struggles and their day-to-day. That's really the purpose of it all.
Yeah. It's great that it's not being gatekept, because I think sometimes in this industry, we try to have these honest conversations, and with people like, oh, isn't this, you're giving away all the info if it's a competition? Like, it's not a competition. No. I'm not going to gatekeep some stuff that can be shared. And so I loved the whole concept of the narrator uplift. And I was so grateful that you guys also had reached out to me and for me to be able to share what my skills were with all of you guys. And to see that some of them, the audience, I love it when the person you're talking to has that aha moment, like it clicked for them. Yes. Just because of how you said it. So I when you were telling us your stories before about how everything happened, and that applause kind of gives you that, ooh, okay, yes. I think I know what I'm doing. All right.
Yeah. And the chance to tell your story. I mean, I knew of you and your wonderful things that you do, but I didn't hear it from you. And it's just different when you can hear somebody talk and just let them talk, let them show and share.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also that's exactly how this podcast came about. Was we were like, why aren't people talking about this? We were like, did you know that June was audiobook month? Because that's how it started with the series. And there was no one knew. And so we kind of started it. And it's that whole concept of just sharing and giving and letting other people understand what's going on and discover someone new to them or learn something else, or we have that in common. Oh my God, I didn't know that you too, do this, and this. And it's just humanizing the process too, to give that insight. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're such wonderful people, getting to know you.
Yeah, I mean, you and Karen have done a phenomenal job with this and providing others with the opportunity to learn from other people that didn't even know that was an option to be able to do that.
Yes.
It's great. Yeah.
You
So
too.
I
No,
try.
you could teach me a trick or two, Viviana. Oh, God.
We can teach everybody something always. I'm such a learner too, so I'm always trying to figure out what else I can learn too. But you also in the storytelling that you were telling me about the whole process of how you got started, you kind of hit something that went, aha, you have an accent, and we are a sucker. As far as listeners go, we are a sucker for accents, and we're always going, oh, the British accent, or oh, the Irish accent. And I've had where we're like, you guys do know that they kind of slow it down a little bit, because if they were going full throttle in their accent, we would be like, what you just say?
Well, on it with when you get into the kind of the different accents of England or Ireland or anywhere, become a lot of dialectical words that are just different, that you wouldn't know. You would have to research it. There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a million different things.
Oh yeah,
so
same things in Spanish.
Right. It isn't even just the attuning to the way that the English is spoken differently. Sometimes it's a whole different language. It can be. Yeah. Oh, and the names, when you talked about research and English names, I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but it's to kind of illustrate a point. Looking up things, I almost look up brown, and that's ridiculous. But, things that look like Featheringstone Hall is how it would look, but it's Fanshawe. And, the more that you do this, you kind of know, I better look that up.
Yep. Because I would have completely mispronounced your last name based on how it looks.
Right.
I'm going, all right, the S and the N means that's because, Snickers. Versus, maybe be something being silent. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. But that also means that you're cast in a lot of more historical British things. So you've done a lot of that, which is great, because I do love a good historical. But has there been a genre that you have yet to narrate in that you're going, ooh, I want that?
There are a lot, and I used to do a lot of fantasy, and I haven't done that in a while, and I'd love to be doing that again. Epic fantasy. I love it. I don't know, because it goes beyond genre, really, Viviana, because it honestly just depends on the book. And genre really doesn't tell me much in one sense about what I would like to do. I have to read the book. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's been times where I would have never thought to pick up a book because I was told it was this genre, and I'm going, but it's so good. And so I read it, and I didn't even realize that's what it was until obviously I started reading. I'm like, out in space, got it. Okay. Or dragons are flying, got it. But it's about the story. It just happens to have been a historical fiction or historical romance or this and that. It's all about the story. But yeah, so you like that epic, the bigger characters and things like that as well.
I do. Just because I suppose I've had so much experience. I've narrated using so many accents, not even just as minor characters, but sometimes as the whole book.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of your favorite accents to perform?
Most of the English ones, of course. Kind of a soft Southern Irish accent, because my parents were both Irish. That was the first accent that I heard. Gosh. Oh, Welsh. I love to do Welsh and Scottish and just all the usual suspects. French. And I'm doing Duolingo right now because I'm going to Paris next month.
Nice.
Yes. And I'm amazed how much I could remember from school days.
Yeah.
And I think I'm on my 52nd day now or something.
I did not know that Duolingo was like a game that you kept track of and try to compete with other people as far as not losing your points. And I'm going, I thought it was one of those like traditional, like, say this and say that, which it does have that and how the pronunciations and things like that. I did not know it was part of that whole game. Do you use it like that too? Or are you just strictly using it like, how do we say this and practice that?
Oh gosh, I just go along with the free thing. And so you've got to kind of keep fairly correct, otherwise you start losing hearts or something. So that's how
I'm not gonna die. I need to pronounce it correctly.
Please don't kill me. I'm too young to
Finish
die.
her. She mispronounced jalapeno.
You'll never forget that one. Oh God, did I say it right, Viviana? Because
You did. You did.
Oh,
Yeah.
for goodness sake. Well, after saying it 60 times or whatever.
I was going to say, right?
God, it is ingrained on me. But I don't take it for granted. I would look it up to this day. So,
I get it.
yeah. About using Duolingo, I don't know. I just I do most things. I kind of think about it for a long time and then I dive in. It's like fools rush in, but fools that have kind of thought about it. So, and then I just see what presented itself to me. So I just went along and I soon saw, if you make too many mistakes, you're going to have to wait for another day or a half a day or something to get back in and learn more. So yeah, there's a leaderboard. I don't know. And I have somebody that found me and is poking me or whatever.
See?
But I don't know. I don't get it. I block off. So, you kind of do your lessons and I just follow whatever they say. And by Jove, they do hammer home a lot of things. They keep going over a lot of the same things, I suppose, making sure that you remember. And it amazes me in some ways because it makes great leaps in knowledge that are just not really explained. You kind of leap from one thing to, okay. That's what is amazing me about how much I remember, at least in the vocabulary. Of course, how you conjugate things is still a little bit, but it's coming back. So yeah, and then so you play the little thing. I do whatever they tell me for each day, and then there are all the ads. You just have to wait those out, and then you learn how to. Sometimes you can kind of fast forward through that, but then there's some of those games you just have to wait until they run their course.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something I've had on my mind. I've been wanting to learn Italian and things like that. But I mean, you're going to go to France, you said next week?
No, next month.
Next month. Okay, so you have still time. Then good. I was going to be like, please, croissant. They're so picky about the word croissants.
Yes, but you've got it. That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I have a few because I'm going to culinary school and I went to the Cordon Bleu. So there's a lot of things that had to be pronounced correctly, like mise en place.
Yes, you're doing great.
Yeah. So yeah, if I was doing certain things for food, I'd be awesome at it. Otherwise, I'd be like, can I just have that? I'm pointing at it. Just give me. But yeah, so I'm excited for you. I can't wait to see all the stuff that you're going to be sharing and also just to hear how fun you had on that trip, because trips are always great. Vacations are great.
Yes. And I tend to go to the same places year after year after year. And so this year I decided to break out. No, we're going to go somewhere different.
Look at you.
Yes.
That's good. It takes courage to do that, folks. Okay. Because you get used to, you get comfortable.
Yes.
And then, so it's definitely something that to not, to really be proud of, like, yeah. So I'm excited for you. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny with me, like I said, I think about things for a long time and then it all kind of comes together. I started a vision board for the first time. Now, a lazy way, this is just a kind of very easy way into it. I do it through Pinterest on my phone. Viviana, you won't believe the things that have come true already.
Nice.
Yes. So I had a picture of Paris was one of the first things, kind of a rooftopy view thing. And of course, the Eiffel Tower and all of that. So that was one of the first pictures I put up there. And that's going to come true. I put up getting an Irish passport. That came true.
Nice.
I put up certain other things and they've come true. So there's just maybe one or two to go.
I need to work on my vision boards because I'm still waiting for that dragon.
What dragon? What dragon? Oh, you're going to train a dragon?
I know, right? It is a favorite movie of mine, How to Train Your Dragon. So, I started my lessons there. But no, it's true when you really want to, manifesting and putting thoughts into it and taking those necessary steps, it does help to have those goals out there for you and finding out like the vision boards. That's great. I also have my Pinterest there. In fact, I'm going to be getting my nails done after we are done through, and I have a board for all the potential design that I'm like, otherwise I get to the place and they're like, what do you want? And I'm like, I don't know.
Right. I did that with bangs. I just got bangs. Yeah. I didn't have them for years. So yes, I started that on Pinterest. Yeah. Yes. With birds of a feather.
I know. Yeah. Well, I'm a planner. So when you're saying that, I'm going, she's a planner. She may not know that that's her title, but she's a planner.
Yes. Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So let's see how well we've gotten to know each other in this time. We're going to play a game to see that it's called Two Truths and a Lie, where you tell us 3 things about yourself and we're going to try to figure out which one's the lie.
Okay. All righty.
All right.
3 things then. Let's see now. I'm a drowning survivor. I've kissed the Blarney Stone. I've delivered over 100 babies.
All right. The baby one, I'm sure it's very true based on your career path. The Blinding Stones or Drowning Survivor. Oof. You really went all out here. From the to the oh my goodness. I want to say that the lie is the Blinding Stone.
Correct. Mm-hmm. That's it. You got it. How did you guess that?
I don't know. I think you okay. This is also where listening happens, right? You had mentioned that you have survived a couple of car accidents and things like that. Mm-hmm. And for me, anytime I always hear car accidents, sometimes I always think of, again, because I'm from Miami, Florida, we have a lot of canals, so I automatically kind of associate car accidents with water sometimes. Yeah. So that kind of just came to me. But also with your background as far as your past careers. 100 babies goes really quickly.
Yes, it does. Yeah, and that's why I only put over 100 because I don't want to remember and I don't want to sound farcical.
Yeah, I mean, 100 babies can easily go within 3 or 4 weeks, people.
Yeah, well,
that's with those long shifts. Come on.
Right. Yeah. And also I had at the time that I studied to be a midwife, which I think it's much longer now, and it's a million times more involved. I think you have to be a university nurse to do it as well. But in any case, at the time it was you had to deliver 50 babies. So there was 50 right there in the training before I ever went on to practice as a midwife. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, I want your practice in before you come anywhere near me.
Right.
That's one of the things that you're like, no, you need to have a little bit more knowledge versus, hey, I want to be an author assistant. I can do it because I read books.
Yes, all these things.
Yeah, there's life literally involved here. Go get your degree, please. But also knowing that it's very natural. There's sometimes, I mean, back in the days, midwife, you're just popping things out. You didn't know any better. But yeah, I mean, that's where I thought. And also with the Blinding Stones, we tend to think that because you're from Europe, that's like a vacation or like a school trip. Of course you've done it, right? Because of course you've done it. You're there. Why not? Why wouldn't you? Just like people think like, oh, you've done this. No, I don't go to Disney every day. Just because I live in Florida, Orlando.
Yes. Oh, you should be a detective, Viviana.
I pay attention. I pay attention, and I see. I hear these things when people are like, "You picked that up," and go, "Yes, I did."
I'm impressed because I've listened to many of your podcasts, and my goodness, they're amazing. And what a wonderful bunch of people, all the people that you narrate are. Yeah. Fascinating. And the more they talk, the more fascinating it gets. But I picked up one thing, and it was what gave many people away was that I think they gave too much detail about the thing that was the lie. And that was how you caught them out. Am I right?
Sometimes, yes.
So that's why I've made the statements very bold. It's just the facts, ma'am.
Yes.
I thought, no, I'm going to make this really hard for you. But you got straight through it.
Well, it was still good. No, it was really good too. I mean, there's, you have some tales sometimes when you try too hard, right? You're trying to cover something up. Yeah. But then that was that one story where he went in all the details about how he had to leap over the truck. And then he found out that there was a snake there, and then he had to pee on, or he was peeing on the snake, didn't realize. And it was just so much. I really thought that was a lie. It wasn't. And so it was just one of those, like, it's all on the delivery, the conversation that we've been having. Other times people have to rewrite theirs or to retell us because they've already kind of like gave it out away in that. And then I've also been tested on that too, to see how much I was paying attention. I'm like, bro, no. Yeah, but those are very, I mean, again, very interesting and stuff like that. But also, as we get to know you, there's so many things that you can probably just tell us that we're like, no, you did that.
Well, anybody, if you've lived on the planet and you've not been on a rock.
Yeah. So, but I am also now curious on the whole guilty pleasures thing, because people tend to think, especially I think in the genre that I usually listen to, which is romance, that when you hear guilty pleasures, you're thinking about like the Red Room, where Bow Chicka Bow Wow happens, and I'm like, no. My guilty pleasure is ice cream for dinner. Okay.
Right. Well, spare your blushes. Yes.
Yes, exactly. The other stuff, no, I relish of it. So what are some of your guilty pleasures?
Well, I talked about the Oriflamme thing. That was how I got into acting. So I love finding fabulous makeup dupes and watching YouTube videos about all those kinds of health and beautified things. I just love them. Time goes by in a heartbeat. But again, I feel that kind of I learned something at the end of it too, and I think you'll identify with that feeling of, yeah, not just, although I should just loosen up. I should watch something funny. That's what I need to do.
We'll learn something, trust me. It's ingrained in our brains.
Right. So that's a big one for me, is finding fabulous makeup dupes. And God, there's good stuff out there. Are you a makeup aficionado?
I was always very much like the Tom girl kind of thing, and just very much into my own, like you'll get me like with lip gloss growing up and stuff like that. And as I've gotten older, I've been wanting to, but then it's like, that's a lot of work. But also because you get all dolled up and people like, that's what they look like, or they'll spend hours on it posting on social media. And I'm going, yeah, I met you in real life, love. No, that's not you. But I do love how putting on a red shade of lipstick kind of just gets you sitting up a little taller, right? Yes. Or you're feeling a little bit more confident. And so I've learned that instead of it being like makeup, instead of it being something that you hide behind, it is like your war makeup. You are shining. You are using your own embodiments of stuff, the gift that you were given at birth to enhance. And just, if it makes you feel good, go for it.
Precisely. Yeah. And my love for makeup started, there's usually a gift in everything, and this was the gift for me. I had the most severe, horrendous cystic acne, the worst kind that you get, where those, whatever they are, pimples and things, they just almost, they tunnel into your insides. They're just so deep. And I was left with awful scars and goodness knows what. So I kind of had to learn. It was just you couldn't go out looking like, it was just awful. And this was in my teenage years, and it didn't come on until I was about 15. So while most people around me, in earlier teenage years were looking all, broken out and whatnot, I'm thinking, I'm going to escape this. I'm going to escape this. And
no.
I got absolutely hammered. And it really wasn't until I came to America and saw good dermatologists over here and got onto Accutane. That was the saving thing for me, which is, it's horrendous stuff now. And even then, they knew that it had the potential to kind of create birth defects. I'm not saying anything that's going to be libelous or whatever, but and I think you had to have a pregnancy test done even then before you took it. And now it's even more stringent, the rules and regulations before you take it. But it was a godsend to me. And that got my skin on the right path, and then all the good skincare and so forth. The good skincare, I think, is worth more than anything that comes down the line. That's interventions and facelifts and all that kind of a thing.
It's really, I mean, the self-care is important and taking care of yourself and stuff. I ended up with having in my teens little to no acne, no issues whatsoever. It's after I got married, and I always blame him. I go, it's your fault. Your happiness gave me just rosacea. I'm sorry. I'm like, but it's just one of those things where, you go through things and you learning and stuff. But for me, I love it when they're getting like the winged eyelashes and the huge eyelashes. They're getting it part of their own persona. So I love that. And I'm going, I need to learn how to do the wingy on my eye. So I've started to do sometimes, like you watching some of those tutorials. And especially when they're sharing part of their, like, I too have rosacea. Oh, you do? Yes. And then you kind of learn, and then you're just kind of building that community. So the other thing too that happens that I love.
That's exactly it. And there are so many women around my age that I love to follow and see what are they up to and how they. Yeah. That's it. It comes back to community. That is it, Viviana. You're right on it.
And not feeling alone, like you're the only girl.
The only ugly girl on the planet. I know.
That has dealing with it. Like, no, there's 100,000 people of us with PCOS and rosacea. We're dealing with it. And it's okay. We just have to love it. But oh my goodness, I can continue to talk to you forever and discover new things like that. You did your makeup stuff. I actually did Mary Kay for a few years as far as
did you?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So it's just things like we could talk forever. By the time we finish, you're going to be off on the plane to go to France. Which at that point I'm going, why aren't you taking me with you?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. So why don't we, again, we could continue talking, but it's been such a fun conversation. Why don't you tell us what's coming up next for you and what you're working on now?
Ooh, well, I've kind of been rushing to get things done so that I wasn't.
Good friend.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So there are 2 newish to me series romances, and they're both out. And so I won't say anything really more than that, just in case. You never know. I might not be to book 2. You just don't know. So historical romances. I've been working on those, and one will come out in November. It's an author that I've worked with for, I think, about 3 books. It's through a publisher, and I have one that is, I'm really excited about those, but I'm also really excited about this history book. It's about the Tudors, who everybody seems to love, and I am a lifelong lover of the Tudors, but it's about them being in love, but it's not in a frivolous way. It's taking the whole, the author is a BBC presenter, and she's a historian, of course. So she talks about what I'm trying to say. She's not a BBC presenter. She is a kind of a talking historian and a writing historian. So, one of these experts. And so she's written this book that on the surface might seem to be dull, but it's a real page turner. And she's baking in the idea, taking the concept of courtly love that goes back to the Middle Ages and maybe even before that, where, the knight does everything for his lady, whether they will ever have a relationship together or not. That kind of, it's like Lancelot and Guinevere, that kind of thing, that concept, and how the Tudors embraced that, and how it affected kind of politics and international diplomacy, and just going through his marriages. It was always Henry, was a monster that was looking for love in all the wrong places. Yes, he was just a bad boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was a lot of, not going to use it as an excuse, but there's a lot of writing it, right? As far as responsibilities, and you must have an heir, and things like that to keep the line going. And you're going, I just want to fall in love and, watch the stars.
Right. And of course, nobody knew or would even have dared to tell him having a boy is on him. It's not.
Yes, I know.
Yes, that's the irony of the whole thing.
Right? Oh, it's one of those like, oh yeah. If I would have busted, I know I'd be like hung for that. It's your fault, right?
Oh yes, you'd have had your tongue cut out or something, I suppose.
Oh yes, absolutely. Okay, that's but the fact that you're enjoying it because we, they've been around for so long, we think we know everything that we can, and there's always that one author sometimes that gives us a little spin, right? And gives a little bit of new insight of like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Yeah, it's always great when that happens.
She's written a page turner because it's not a brand new book. It's been out for a little bit. And yeah, it's a highly acclaimed book, and I can't wait.
Nice. Okay, I'm going to look for it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me. It's truly been a pleasure to get to know you better and have this conversation.
Time flew, Viviana.
It does.
How much we have in common.
Yes. But if you guys are not following her on social media, don't worry, I will provide you guys with all the links. It will be over on this episode's landing page over at Viviana Enchantress of Books, so you can make sure to follow her. And until next time, everyone, happy listenings.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Viviana.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of our Audiobook Lovin Podcast Patreon. The Audiobook Lovin Podcast has special Patreon access levels. Join today to receive benefits including early access to episodes, shout-outs, special exclusive content, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobookloving. We thank you for your support.
Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. For links and more information discussed in today's episode, previous podcasts, or the Audiobook Lovin Series, please visit our website, Viviana, EnchantressofBooks.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a positive review wherever you listen to our podcast. Until next time, happy listening.